Good morning, Alan. And hello, everyone else. I'm Terry. Welcome to TARDIS Spider. Today, Peter Davison, an old man in a young man's body. If you like this video, please like, please subscribe. And now, Peter Davison, an old man in a young man's body. In 1981, new producer John Nathan Turner inherited a doctor, a companion, a robot dog, and a style of finished production that did not fit his image for Doctor Who. Season 19 is produced mostly in 1981, with Eric Sayward taking over as script editor. When the 29-year-old Peter Davison is cast as the Fifth Doctor, John Nathan Turner's reimagining of the series is complete. Just as color would introduce the 70s, a new time slot would introduce JNT's version of Doctor Who. Since the very first episode of An Unearthly Child, Doctor Who had aired on Saturday. Now it will be aired twice a week, on Mondays and Tuesdays. This proved successful, with an average increase of more than 3 million viewers in each story, now averaging between 9 and 10 million. Davison was already a star, and with new episodes on the air just 3 months a year, he would never be as closely identified as his predecessors with the role. His low-key approach was distinctly different from that of Tom Baker. The Doctor's struggle with this regeneration would set the stage for a more vulnerable character. Castrovalva would set the tone for this vulnerability, as Davison would add occasional reminders of his age, though his face would not seem that aged. As a very old man in a young body, he would assume a more parental role to his TARDIS crew. Castrovalva was recorded fourth, allowing Davison to make a confident debut, yet this story suffers from a lack of direction in its early stages. A note of artistic history. Visual elements from Castrovalva are influenced by M.C. Escher's paintings, Castrovalva 1930 and Up and Down 1947. Four to Doomsday is actually the first story recorded. The TARDIS and crew arrive on an enormous spaceship filled with different historical ethnic groups and monarch, who believes himself to be. This story, as was Castrovalva, is visually stunning. The disturbing realism of Kinda is set in the lush forest of Diva Loca. The Mara have invaded Tegan's mind. Nyssa would only appear in parts 1 and 4, as her contract did not stretch to the whole season. Watch this one with the updated special effects. In The Visitation, a favorite of mine, a more convincing threat is presented by the Pteroleptils. They are the first Doctor Who monsters to benefit from the technology of animatronics. We will also say goodbye to one last piece of the past, the sonic screwdriver. In the two-parter Black Orchid, the Doctor is accused of murder. And who is the disfigured man? The lack of science fiction in this is as close to a historical that we have seen since the Highlanders in Patrick Troughton's first season. The most memorable story of the first Davison season is Earthshock, which will live up to its name, written by Eric Sayward and brilliantly paced by director Peter Grimwade. This story would reintroduce us with a shock to the Cybermen, and leave us in shock with the death of a companion. The season ends with Time Flight, a disappointing rematch with the Master, but the BBC was able to stick the Concorde into a story. 2 years into the JNT era, after making sweeping changes on and off screen, Turner is confident enough to have a 20th season where every story contains a major element from the show's past. Now largely seen on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the 20th season will open with the Arc of Infinity. This story is scheduled as the second in the recording block, as an effort to get the best weather possible for the location shooting in Amsterdam. Returning will be Omega, still trying to escape from the antimatter universe, where he had an explosive encounter with the three Doctors. Tegan, who was left behind at Heathrow Airport in time flight, will also return. In Snake Dance, the Mara plan to use the still possessed Tegan. This is a sequel to Kinda, less abstract, yet with some great moments with live snakes being used in the studio recording. The Dark Guardian trilogy begins with the modern undead, written with the idea of bringing Ian Chesterton from the first few seasons back. William Russell was unavailable, so Nicholas Courtney was substituted as a schoolteacher, playing the Brigadier twice, 6 years apart. Turlough would join this TARDIS crew at the end of the story. Turlough would continue on as a puppet for the Black Guardian, for now. Nyssa would stay on Station Terminus at the end of the next story to help heal the victims of Lazar's disease. Enlightenment would end the Black Guardian trilogy. The Doctor and TARDIS team would join a racing yacht. A racing yacht racing through space. Winner takes all. This story is a highlight for the season, with Keith Barron's Soulless Eternal, a performance as haunting as the character itself. The regular season would end with the two-part story, The King's Demons. The returning master would use the shape-shifting robot Chameleon to prevent Magna Carta from being signed. Mike Powers is the creator of Chameleon, a functioning automaton. Sadly, Powers died in a boating accident, so Chameleon was never fully functional or used. For the 20th anniversary, we have The Five Doctors. The Five Doctors is the first Doctor Who story to air first in the United States. It would be delayed in the UK to air with the Children in Need specials 2 days later. Terrence Dick's script corralled a staggering array of friends and foes from all eras. Peter Davison was joined by Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, William Hurdnall standing in for Hartnell, and with video clips of Tom Baker. This is a 90-minute special, and for many fans, special is the right description, for this is a story about remembering this show's past. Davison would stick with his original plans to leave after 3 years, so his departure was announced on 29 July 1983. His last season, Season 21, would debut in January 1984, with Warriors of the Deep, now broadcast on Thursdays and Fridays. In the future year 2084, the Silurians and the Sea Devils invade Seabase 4. The Merca, often derided as a monster, is really no worse than any large, lumbering creature from the classic series. In The Awakening, Little Holcomb's Civil War reenactment becomes too real, with an alien force feeding on the emotions. The filming would take place in 3 different villages. A beheading was removed just before final broadcast, as was a scene with Chameleon. Peter Davison was given a slightly altered new costume. Christopher Bidmead's bleak portrayal of Frontios featured an Earth colony under attack by meteor storms, while the insect-like tractator sucked humans into the ground. The TARDIS was pulled apart by the forces of gravity. Ratings improved for the resurrection of the Daleks, broadcast in 2 45-minute episodes. Davros is now played by Terry Malloy, with Tegan choosing to stay on present-day Earth as it just wasn't fun anymore. Resurrection of the Daleks is considered one of the most violent stories in the history of Doctor Who. Partially filmed on location in Lanzarote, the next story, Planet of Fire, will see Turlough leave and Perry join the TARDIS. The Master also returns, and Chameleon will depart the show. The Doctor is poisoned by spectrotoxemia in the caves of the Androzani. Holmes' script was equal to any of his other stories, and Graham Harper's direction would offer a glimpse of what Doctor Who could be, freed from archaic multi-camera production methods. Regenerating at the end of the caves of Androzani, from an old man in a young body to a curly-haired, impulsive, hoarse and brightly hued doctor, Colin Baker, arrives. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please never ever forget, a child cannot have a favorite book if they do not have one. Give a child a book today. Good night.